I thought he wanted to marry me. Then I found out he's seeing my mom. I never thought I'd be the kind of person posting here with a story this messed up. Honestly, I don't even know where to start without sounding like a walking soap opera cliche. But here goes nothing. My name's Emily. I'm 26 and I've been dating this guy Jake for about a year now. He's, well, complicated, handsome, charming, sweet, the kind of guy who could talk his way out of a speeding ticket and probably into a secret government job if he wanted to. He told me from the start he was serious, said he wanted to marry me. Hell, he even dropped the forever word a few times, which I know sounds naive, but I believed him. I was in love, okay? But there was always this weird vibe. You know that feeling when something's off but you can't quite put your finger on it? Jake was great with words but terrible at texts. Took him hours to reply sometimes, and I just thought he was busy or whatever. I didn't think to check his phone because I trusted him. Big mistake. The first red flag? A text notification popped up while he was borrowing my phone to check Instagram. It was from someone saved as mom. That in itself wouldn't have been weird, except I knew he never talked to his mom. I saw the preview. Can we meet tonight? Need to talk. My stomach dropped. I wasn't snooping, promise, but curiosity got the better of me. I checked his phone once while he was in the shower. Yeah, I'm ashamed. But what I found wasn't just texting. Pictures of my mom and him together. Intimate photos. Texts like, I can't wait to see you. Tonight was amazing. You're the only one I want. I froze. Like, literally. My heart was pounding so loud I thought he might hear it through the walls. The worst part? They were planning to keep it a secret from me. And here I was thinking he wanted to marry me. I tried to rationalize it for a few days. Maybe it was some sick joke, some weird misunderstanding, but the texts were too detailed, too personal. My mind raced. Maybe it's a rebound thing. Maybe my mom's in trouble. No, this is all wrong. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. I confronted him. Me, Jake, what the hell is going on between you and my mom? Jake with that slick smile and the kind of calm that screams practiced excuse. Emily, you're overthinking. She's just a friend. You know I love you. Gaslighting 101. He looked me dead in the eyes and tried to convince me I was crazy for suspecting anything. He even twisted it to sound like I was the problem for not trusting him. Typical. You're being paranoid, he said with that irritating half smirk. Why would I lie to you? I'm trying to build a future here. Yeah, sure, buddy. Build a future with her, apparently. Meanwhile, my mom acted like everything was perfectly normal, but I caught her once staring at her phone with that guilty little smile that made my skin crawl. She'd pretend to be busy when I was around, avoiding eye contact like she was the star of the worst reality show ever filmed. I kept pretending everything was fine while secretly drowning in doubt and rage. It was like walking through a minefield every time I saw them together in the same room. Couldn't look at either of them without thinking about those texts and pictures. Then the bomb dropped, not from them, but from a careless friend who saw them together in a cafe, laughing and holding hands like lovers. My so-called best friend casually mentioned it one day, not knowing I'd been suspicious already. I felt like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. How could Jake, who told me he wanted to marry me, be sneaking around with my own mother? And what did this mean for me, for us? Was I just some placeholder until the real thing came along? I wanted to scream, to break something. Instead, I just sat there, feeling my chest tighten like I was choking on a lie that stretched way too long. But the real nightmare was yet to come, because after that, everything started to unravel faster than I could catch my breath. But I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, and the truth would hit me harder than anything I'd ever imagined. After that day, I thought maybe I could handle it. You know, like a normal person who's just been stabbed in the heart but tries to pretend it's just a paper cut. Yeah, no. A week later, Jake invited me over to talk. The air smelled faintly of the cheap candles he liked, the ones with that sickly sweet vanilla scent that used to make me smile. Not anymore. I sat down on his couch, the one that suddenly looked way too small for the storm brewing between us. He took my hand and I swear, for a second I thought maybe I'd misread everything. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was the guy who wanted to marry me. Then he pulled out the envelope. It was a letter from a clinic. My heart sank like a stone. "Emily," Jake said softly, avoiding my eyes, "I thought you should know. Your mom is pregnant." I blinked. Pregnant? Like his kid? He kept talking, but my brain short-circuited. Pregnant echoed in my head like a broken record. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared, he said, but that's not all. My mind screamed, but I kept quiet, trying to steady myself. I'm also pregnant, I blurted out before he could finish, and then the words hit me like a slap. I'd taken the test a week ago, positive. Jake and I had been careless, wrapped up in the fantasy of forever. Suddenly, this wasn't just about lies or cheating. This was a total meltdown of everything I thought my life was. Jake looked between me and the letter in his hand, his face twisting with guilt and something else. Fear, maybe? "I don't know what to do," he whispered. "I want to be there for you, for both of you. I do," I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. "You want to be there? You're dating my mom behind my back, and now she's pregnant with your child? And you think you can just be there?" He winced, but then the mask went back on. "It's complicated, Emily. You don't understand everything." "Oh, I understood perfectly." I stood up, my legs shaky. "I need to know, is it mine or hers? Whose kid is this, Jake?" He hesitated. "I don't know yet. We're getting a DNA test." And just like that, the ground beneath me turned into quicksand. The next few days were a blur. The clinic visits, the awkward silences, the whispered phone calls behind closed doors. I remember the day the DNA test results came back like it was yesterday. Jake called me from the office, his voice cracking. "Emily, you need to come here, now." I grabbed my jacket, my hands trembling. When I got there, the receptionist handed me an envelope without a word. Inside was the result. Jake is the father of both babies. The shock was a punch to the gut. I sat in that sterile waiting room, tears blurring the lines of the letter, my mind racing. How could this even happen? And my mom, I wanted to scream at her, cry, hate her, but part of me was numb. When Jake showed up, his face was pale, eyes haunted. "I never wanted this to happen like this," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry." I looked at him, really looked, and the anger that had been simmering boiled over. "You lied to me, to both of us. You played us against each other like pawns." He swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that, I swear." "Oh, really? Because it looks like you've been living a double life." He avoided my gaze. I left that day feeling like I had been buried alive but was still breathing somehow. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, scrolling through old messages, piecing together every lie, every hidden text, every betrayal. I remembered the times he said "I love you" with so much conviction. The times I told him about my dreams, my fears, all of it a lie. And the worst part, I still loved him. I hated that about myself. I wanted to scream at the universe, "Why me? Why us?" But the truth was, this mess was ours to clean up or destroy us completely. And I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole really went. After the DNA test confirmed the impossible, that Jake was the father of both my baby and my mom's, I thought maybe I could hide from the world. Maybe keep this nightmare locked away in my personal hell. Nope, that's not how life works. The news leaked fast. It's like someone threw gasoline on the fire and tossed a match. First, my friends, one by one, they found out. Some messaged me with fake sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Emily. That's so messed up." Others? Well, others vanished. The ones I thought were my ride or die suddenly had urgent business in Timbuktu. Then came the texts from family, mostly from distant relatives who had no idea what to say. My aunt called me crying, but also asking if I was sure about the test. My dad? Radio silence. He refused to pick up. I guess pretending it didn't exist was easier. Social media? A bloodbath. Someone, maybe Jake's ex or my mom's old friend, posted screenshots of our conversations, pictures of Jake and my mom together. The test results leaked online. The comments ranged from "This is the definition of trash" to "Is this real life?" to the classic "Someone's gonna need therapy." The local gossip mill churned like it was on steroids. At work, my manager called me in for a chat. I braced for the worst. Instead, she told me to take some time off because everyone's talking. That's one way to put it. And the worst part? People started treating me like the villain, like I'd done something wrong by simply existing in this mess. How could you not know? Why didn't you leave him sooner? Your mom? Really? The passive-aggressive whispers in hallways, the fake smiles, everywhere. At family gatherings, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mom, surprisingly, acted like nothing had changed. She smiled politely, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Like a bomb went off and she was pretending it was a birthday party. Jake? He oscillated between desperate apologies and angry outbursts. 1 minute begging me to forgive him, the next blaming me for ruining his life. I realized quickly that his version of being there was code for controlling the narrative. Then came the lawyers. My mom and Jake announced they were considering marriage. That was a punch in the gut. Suddenly, they were the victims in this story. How dare I make their relationship public? I hired a lawyer to protect my rights and, more importantly, the rights of my unborn child. The custody battles, paternity agreements, financial support discussions, it was exhausting. I never imagined I'd have to fight for something so basic: respect, dignity, and a safe future for my kid. During this chaos, I sank into apathy. I stopped answering calls, stopped returning texts, and avoided social media altogether. The world felt too loud, too cruel. But beneath the numbness, something shifted. I started digging, not just through legal paperwork, but through my own feelings, memories, and illusions. Why did I love someone who could betray me so deeply? Was I just another victim or a willing participant in my own downfall? One night, while scrolling through some old emails from Jake, I stumbled on something that changed everything. A message between him and a mutual friend discussing how keeping Emily and Mom tangled was a way to stay close to the family money. It hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just a messy love triangle, this was manipulation, a long con I was just waking up from. I confronted Jake with the message during one of our meetings to discuss custody. His face went pale, then furious. "You're insane." That was taken out of context, he spat. But the seed of doubt was planted. From that moment, I knew I had to protect myself harder than ever. But little did I know, the truth still had more layers to reveal. After discovering Jake's real motives, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. Turns out, there was a basement below that. And guess what? It was full of snakes. I started paying closer attention to my mom's behavior. At first, she kept up the "I'm fine" act like a pro, smiling, baking cookies, pretending this wasn't the mess she helped create. But cracks began to show. The late-night phone calls she'd rush to answer, the secretive texts she hid when I entered the room, the sudden business trips that conveniently aligned with Jake's schedule. One afternoon, I decided to follow her. Don't judge me. Desperate times call for desperate measures. She got into her old beat-up sedan and drove to a run-down motel on the edge of town. My heart hammered as I parked across the street, watching her walk inside. Minutes later, Jake's car rolled up. They met in the lobby, whispered urgently, and then disappeared into a room. My stomach churned. I wanted to confront them, yell, demand answers, but something inside me whispered, "Wait." I sat in my car, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and hushed voices through the cracked window. There was a casualness between them, a comfort that felt like salt on a fresh wound. When they left, I followed from a distance. They went to a lawyer's office. My mind raced. What are they planning? What secret deal are they cooking up without me? The answer hit me hard the next day when I found an email on my mom's laptop, not from Jake, but from a financial advisor. Subject: trust fund and property division plan. Reading through the cold, calculated numbers made my blood run cold. They were plotting to take control of my dad's assets that legally belonged to me and my unborn child. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal, financial, and brutal. I confronted my mom that night. Her face was a mask of calm, but her hands trembled. "Mom, are you seriously planning to cut me out of everything to take what's mine?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Emily, this is bigger than you. You need to understand that sometimes you have to make hard choices to survive." I laughed bitterly. "Survive? By stabbing your own daughter in the back?" Her smile was thin, almost sad. I did what I had to do. The next weeks were a nightmare. The family divided into factions. Friends chose sides. The house that once felt like a home became a battlefield. One night during a tense dinner, Jake raised his glass and said, "To new beginnings." I almost laughed out loud. New beginnings? Sure, if your beginning is built on the ruins of my trust and dignity. Throughout this hell, I clung to one thing, my baby. Sometimes, in the darkest moments, I talked to the tiny life growing inside me, promising protection, love, and a better future than the chaos I was living. Yet the pain lingered. How could the man I loved and the woman who gave me life team up against me like this? I realized then that family isn't always about blood or promises. Sometimes it's about survival and knowing when to walk away. But leaving was harder than I thought, because just when I thought I understood the depth of their betrayal, a phone call shattered my fragile resolve. "Emily," the voice on the other end whispered, "there's something you need to know, something about Jake and your mom. It changes everything." My heart froze. I had no idea that the next secret would turn my entire world upside down once again. The phone call came at the worst possible moment. I was sitting on my couch, exhausted from another sleepless night, staring blankly at the ceiling. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize flashing on the screen. "Emily?" the voice said, low and cautious. "My name's Rachel. I knew your dad, and I knew Jake before you did. There's something you have to know. It's about your family, and it goes way deeper than you think." I blinked, my mind racing. Who was this Rachel? How did she know so much about my life? And more importantly, why was she reaching out now? Rachel's voice was calm but urgent as she explained. Jake and my mom's relationship wasn't some random, impulsive mistake. It was part of a tangled web of lies, secrets, and grudges stretching back years, long before I even met Jake. "You see, Emily," she said, "your mom and Jake's pasts are connected in ways no one wants to admit. Before your dad, your mom had a relationship with someone else, someone dangerous. And Jake, he wasn't the innocent guy you thought he was either." I felt my breath hitch. What the hell was going on? Rachel sent me photos, old grainy pictures of my mom with a man I'd never seen, looking tense and secretive. And then another batch, Jake, younger, with a dark, almost sinister look in his eyes that I'd never noticed in person. I sat frozen, staring at the screen as the pieces slowly fell into place. "This wasn't just a messy love triangle," Rachel said. "It was a calculated attack. Your dad wronged someone close to Jake, and Jake's been planning this for years. Your mom? She got caught in the middle." I wanted to scream, to reject it all, but the evidence was staring me in the face. "Why drag me into this?" I asked, voice shaking. "Why me? Why the babies?" Rachel sighed. "Because Jake wanted to hurt your dad where it hurt the most. Family, legacy. And your mom, maybe she thought she could control it, or maybe she was just scared." That night I lay awake, haunted by Rachel's words. The secret meetings, the cold financial plans, the gaslighting, it all had a new, darker meaning. I needed answers. The next day I confronted my mom. She didn't flinch or look surprised. Instead, she let out a deep, weary sigh, as if years of guilt finally crushed her spirit. "Emily," she said quietly, "I didn't want you to find out like this. But yes, there's a past I've been running from. Your dad wasn't perfect. He made enemies. And Jake was one of them." I wanted to cry, to scream, but the words caught in my throat. "So all this time, I was just a pawn in some vendetta?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. I never wanted it to get this far." For the first time, I saw her not as the villain, but as a woman trapped by her own fears and regrets. Still, the betrayal cut deep. How do you forgive when your whole world feels like a lie? I spent the next few days replaying everything. Jake's charming smiles, the whispered promises, my mom's cold silences. I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare where everyone was wearing masks. And through it all, the growing life inside me was a reminder of what was at stake. Despite everything, I knew one thing: I had to fight. Not just for me, but for my child. But first, I had to gather my strength and figure out who I could really trust, because in this family, trust had become the rarest currency of all. But even as I faced the wreckage of my past, I knew the battle was only beginning. After the phone call and the painful confrontation with my mom, something inside me shifted. The fog of shock and betrayal began to lift, replaced by a fierce determination I didn't know I had. This wasn't going to break me. No way. I still felt hollow at times, like I was walking through my life in slow motion. But beneath that numbness, a fire was igniting. I had to take back control, not just for me, but for my unborn child, for the future I still wanted to believe in. First step lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but someone who didn't blink when I laid out the mess. Cheating, secret pregnancies, betrayal, financial schemes. The kind of person who'd roll up their sleeves and prepare for war. Her name was Claire. Sharp, no nonsense, and straight to the point. "Emily," she said during our first meeting, "this is a legal nightmare, but it's not unwinnable. We'll take it step by step," and step by step we did. Custody battles, paternity agreements, restraining orders against Jake. When his texts turned from pleading to threatening, it was exhausting. I'd never imagined my life would turn into a courtroom drama, but there I was. Meanwhile, my mom? She suddenly turned cold. The warmth that was once there had vanished like a ghost. At family events, what few remained, I could see the flicker of regret in her eyes, but no apology. I learned to steel myself, to hold my ground when everyone else expected me to crumble. My friends started coming back, cautiously. Some apologized for turning their backs, others just watched, unsure how to help. Social media became a minefield. I stopped scrolling. The snide comments, the bless your heart messages from strangers, it was easier to pretend it wasn't happening, but I couldn't pretend anymore. One night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by legal papers and baby books, trying to plan a future that felt impossible. The weight of betrayal was crushing, but my resolve was stronger. I thought about Jake, the man who'd promised forever, then destroyed everything. I wanted to scream at him, to hurt him like he'd hurt me, but I realized that would only give him power over me. So I stopped answering his calls. Instead, I focused on myself. Therapy sessions, prenatal classes, and late-night walks that helped clear my head. I discovered a part of me I never knew, a fierce survivor who refused to be a victim. But the fight wasn't just legal or emotional, it was practical. I started looking for a new place to live, away from the toxic energy of my family home. Found a small apartment near my work, not much but mine. I decorated it with things that reminded me of hope. A soft blanket, pictures of my childhood dog, and a little plant that, against all odds, was still growing. Through all this, the baby kicked for the first time. That tiny, insistent movement was a reminder that life goes on, even in the worst storms. Then came the twist I never expected. One evening, Claire called me with news. Jake's financial advisor had turned witness for us. Apparently, he'd grown tired of the lies and manipulation and wanted out. This was the break I needed. With this insider testimony, we could challenge the trust fund plans and financial manipulations Jake and my mom had been plotting. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe justice was possible. But as the court dates approached, so did the pressure. My mom reached out to me one afternoon, voice shaky and defensive. "Emily, please, can we talk? For the baby's sake?" I wanted to say no, but something held me back. We met in a neutral cafe. The tension was thick. We avoided eye contact at first. Then she said, "I don't want to lose you." For a moment, I saw the mother I wished I had, the one who'd protect me no matter what. But the damage was real. I told her, "It's not just about losing me, it's about the lies, the betrayal. We're not just fighting for money or custody, we're fighting for truth." She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. Maybe this was a start. I still don't know how this will end, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm winning. winning back my life, my dignity, and my future. The day of the court hearing arrived faster than I ever could have prepared for. I barely slept the night before, my mind a non-stop carousel of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jake's smirk, my mom's cold stare, and the sterile white walls of the courtroom closing in on me. I forced myself to get up, put on a clean, professional outfit, something that screamed I'm serious but didn't scream desperation. The baby kicked lightly as I sat at the breakfast table, a quiet reminder that I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for two innocent lives caught in this toxic mess. The courthouse was a grim building, imposing and echoing with footsteps and whispered conversations. As I entered the courtroom, my stomach twisted into knots. Jake was already there, sitting with his lawyer, looking unusually nervous. His usual cocky grin was gone, replaced by a tension that made him almost unrecognizable. Next to him sat my mom, her posture rigid, avoiding my gaze like she was a ghost in the room. Claire gave me a reassuring nod, and I gripped my hands tightly in my lap. The judge called the case to order, his voice calm but authoritative, commanding the room to settle. Opening statements began. Jake's lawyer spun a story of a complicated but ultimately loving relationship, trying to paint a picture where everyone was a victim of circumstance. It was infuriating. Hearing that, I felt my hands clench into fists under the table. The audacity. Then it was Claire's turn. She was a machine, calm, precise, and relentless. She laid out every piece of evidence we had, the texts where Jake confessed to hiding things from me, the emails plotting financial maneuvers with my mom, the photos exposing their secret meetings, and the damning testimony from Jake's own financial advisor who'd flipped on him. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. I could literally feel the momentum shift like a wave crashing over me. When the judge finally said it was my turn to speak, my throat was dry, but my voice was clear and steady. I told the truth about the betrayal, the lies, the pain, about the two babies, my child and my mom's, and how they deserved a future free from chaos. I didn't hold back. I let every raw, vulnerable piece of my soul pour out, hoping the judge could see beyond the paper and into the heart of the mess we were living. I caught Jake's eye once. His usual defiance faltered, replaced by something that looked like fear. And my mom? She blinked rapidly, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, but she never met my gaze directly. Hours passed like a slow, brutal march. Arguments, cross-examinations, and legal jargon flew over my head. I just held on, my mind replaying every word, every accusation. When the judge called for a recess, I stumbled outside into the sunlight, gasping for air. I felt the weight of weeks, maybe months, of tension lift slightly. Jake looked defeated, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the man he truly was, broken, powerless, and exposed. When the hearing resumed, the judge handed down the verdict. Custody and financial arrangements would be split fairly, with protections firmly in place for my child's future. The trust fund manipulations Jake and my mom had schemed to enact were nullified. Restraining orders were issued to keep Jake away unless officially required. It wasn't a perfect victory. The damage was done and healing would take years. But it was a start, a foothold in reclaiming my life. Later that evening, I sat alone in my quiet apartment, the baby kicking gently inside me. I thought about everything, the lies, the betrayals, the endless battle. And slowly, a realization settled in. Survival isn't just about fighting back. It's also about forgiving yourself, for loving someone who hurt you, for being human. With trembling fingers, I typed a message to my mom. We need to talk. No anger, no blame. Just those simple words. Her reply came almost immediately. When you're ready. The future was uncertain, messy, and maybe painfully complicated, but it was mine to shape. Just as I was about to put my phone down, a new message popped up. From an unknown number. Emily, you don't know the half of it. Be careful who you trust. My heart stopped. The message from the unknown number sat on my phone like a ticking time bomb. Emily, you don't know the half of it. Be careful who you trust. My thumb hovered over the screen, debating whether to reply or delete it forever, but deep down, I already knew this was far from over. In the days that followed, my world felt like it was unraveling thread by thread. The so-called peace granted by the court verdict was only a temporary ceasefire in a war that had no clear end. Every smile I forced at work felt like a mask, every interaction a performance. The battle had left wounds deeper than any physical scar. My mom and I began having long, painful conversations, the kind where silence speaks louder than words, and every confession cuts like a knife. She opened up about her past mistakes, fears, and regrets, the secret burdens she had carried alone for years. It was no longer about blame, it was about trying to understand the broken pieces of a family none of us had chosen. "I never wanted it to come to this, Em," she said one night, her voice trembling. "I thought I was protecting us, but maybe I was just protecting myself." I looked at her, a woman I both loved and resented. The betrayal still stung, but beneath it I saw something fragile, a person fighting her own demons. Jake? He had disappeared completely from my life. His calls and messages were all blocked, but the void he left was strangely heavy. Sometimes in quiet moments, I wondered if he ever thought about the child growing inside me, or if I was just another casualty in his long game of revenge. The court ruling was a small victory. It ensured custody rights, financial support, and protections against Jake's manipulations, but no legal document could patch the emotional wreckage. No judge could decide who was allowed to grieve or forgive. Friends drifted in and out of my life. Some reached out with genuine concern, others vanished like smoke when the drama became too real. I learned who truly stood by me, and it was not always who I had expected. Work became my sanctuary. The predictable deadlines, the hum of computers, the distant chatter of coworkers, it all grounded me. There, I was Emily, the professional, not the girl caught in a family scandal. Yet nights were torture. The silence in my apartment screamed louder than any courtroom. The baby kicked, a soft reminder of hope, but also of all that had been lost. Sometimes I'd whisper to the little life inside me, promising safety and love in a world that felt anything but safe. Then, late one evening, the unknown number sent another message. "Not everything is what it seems. Watch your back." My skin crawled. I wanted to scream, to tear down every wall I'd built around myself. But I stayed silent. I never replied. Paranoia settled in like a dark cloud. Every unexpected knock, every unfamiliar voice on the phone sent my heart racing. I started double-checking locks, avoiding certain places, and second-guessing everyone's intentions. The cruelest irony? The people who should have been my safe haven, the ones who promised protection, became sources of fear. And that's the bitterest truth of all. You fight tooth and nail to reclaim your life, only to realize that the war never really ends. So here I am now, stronger, wiser, but forever marked. The daughter who was betrayed, the woman who survived. I don't know what tomorrow holds, maybe peace, maybe more chaos. But one thing I do know for sure, this story does not define me. Because sometimes the real victory isn't in having a perfect ending. It's in surviving the nightmare at all, and surviving means choosing to keep moving forward, even when the past refuses to stay buried. And that's where I leave it, for now.